So this is in the news because Johnson Hazen says they might consider the DA I'm talking about going into bed with the ANC for 2024. And of course, there's been outrage across the entire nation about this. How could they? How could they? How could they? But here at Morning Shot, we think it might actually be quite a good idea.
Yeah, so originally, you may recall when we were in Parliament, we actually discussed this with John, right? And we actually said, like, what do you think? Would you do this? And we had a long discussion with him. And you and I were both deeply against this. We both thought it would be a terrible idea because where we've seen some forms of coalitions in other sides of the world, we've seen that the junior party in the coalition generally tends to get swept away with the senior party. And as a result of that, what it effectively means is that come the next elections, the junior party is nowhere to be seen. So I think, a good example of that is the Lib Dems when they first partnered with David Cameron in the United Kingdom, the Conservative Party, way back when, in order to get their majority. Now the Lib Dem party is like non-existent. The same goes for MDC in Zimbabwe when they partnered with Mugabe's party, ZANU-PF. And as you'll know, after that election, nobody really voted for MDC because that just disappeared. And so I think a lot of people are kind of like, how could you? Because it seems like the DA would get 4 years of possible power, and then they'd be assigned to the dust heap of history because everybody would tar the DA with the ANC brush.
Yeah.
But I did a lot of thinking about this, and I did come to a conclusion that I think it is for the best, and I have 2 reasons for this. The first actually relates to John himself, and that is, it is undeniable that John is a white bassi, yeah? Like, how everybody will frame him. And as deputy president, I think it will be a really good show to the country that just because you got a whitey there, even as deputy, apartheid didn't come back. And I think that's a really, really big victory for the DA. Because as you know, one of the ANC slogans is you better vote for the ANC, otherwise the apartheid will return. And I think if they have some levers of power and they show that there is no apartheid, I think that's quite a big winner. And that actually lays some really good groundwork for the future. The second thing is that it would allow the DA to take certain forms of ministerial roles and possibly at least advance those portfolios. So you may have something like, the finance portfolio that could, at least for that time, start reintroducing the private enterprises to South Africa and potentially deprioritizing state-owned enterprises. And why that would be important, and I can't see it being done with the ANC, is that the ANC is too aligned to its union partners. And at least if those portfolios were in the hands of, say, the DA, the ANC would be able to go, well, it's not our fault. I guess the DA, right? I mean, the DA is doing all this. And so they could, to a degree, take the easy road and allow someone else to take the hard policy decisions that they're never going to do. So I did think about it, and I was like, there are some downsides, but I can also see the positives. How about yourself?
But I think it's important to frame it correctly as well. We live in a democracy, for better or worse. I think for worse. But we live in a democracy. The democracy is the art of the possible, right? So we're not saying ANC-DA coalition is the best outcome. It is, what are the other potential outcomes out there that it is against? What are what are the evils that we are pitting against each other? The biggest one is no doubt ANC-EFF, right? That's straightforward Venezuela, straightforward Zimbabwe. The second one is ANC plus Smolanyana ISIS parties like Good and Al Jamar. That will just give the ANC free reign to do whatever it wants, which is not great either.
Well, it might as well just be a majority at that point, isn't it?
Exactly. The alternative to that is what? DA-EFF, never going to happen in terms of numbers, and I doubt the Freedom Front Plus, PA, and a variety of others will work with the EFF and the DA together. That is probably the most shakiest coalition that you could find. So out of all the possible options, based on how the election results go in 2024, the best option is probably the DA-ANC one. Not because it's utopian, it's just because out of the art of the possible and of all the evils, it's probably the less evil one.